Hi, first graders. Happy last week of school. I can't believe how much you guys have grown and learned this year. And this week, I decided since it's our last week, I'm going to teach you guys a skill that you're going to use for the rest of your life as readers. We're going to go through the process of developing research questions and then finding those answers in nonfiction books and other resources. This is a skill that you're going to need your whole life, and so we're going to start practicing it now. So here's our learning target. By the end of today, I will be able to develop research questions and find books to help answer the questions. So first thing I need to think of a research topic. So I was thinking today, and my class might know this, I think I told my class about this, but I know the rest of the classes probably don't know this. So out in my yard, I have a couple big buckets, and those buckets are full of worms. They're compost buckets. And so what that means is if I'm cooking dinner and I cut up some vegetables, and if I cut off the ends of those vegetables, or if I have one that's going bad, I don't put it in the trash. I actually save it. Then I keep them in these buckets, and I have some worms in there that eat the vegetables, and then they turn it into soil that you can use in your garden. And so I know a little bit about the process, but I was thinking there's more that I could learn about my worms. So I thought I could do a research project about worms. So that's what I'm going to research today. The first thing that I'm going to do is develop some questions. So I'm going to show you, instead of writing on paper, I'm going to type it. So let me show my screen so you can see what I'm going to type. Okay, so here. So I titled my paper Earthworm Research. You'll title it whatever thing you want to research and learn more about. And I picked this just because something I'm curious about. I know a little bit and I want to learn more, and there's some questions I have that I don't really know the answer to. I'm going to see if I can find those answers through some research. So the first thing I was wondering, worms don't have any legs, so I was wondering, how do they move if they don't have legs? So that's kind of my first question. How do earthworms move? And so I'm going to see if I can find some books that'll teach me the answer to that. So I'm going to leave a little space. Now, my second question, I was thinking, I know that I feed them usually old vegetables, but I'm wondering if there's more I could learn about what they like to eat. So what do earthworms like to eat? I know a little bit, but maybe I can learn some more. And then I was also thinking, if you look really closely at a worm, you can't really see if they have eyes or a mouth. So I'm wondering, do they have eyes? Do they have a mouth? How do they breathe? That's kind of a couple questions. So maybe first, do they have eyes? Because if they do, they're very small. It's hard to see. Maybe I can find out in the book. And maybe how do they breathe? And I was also thinking, since I know a little bit about the composting process, but maybe I can learn more about how are earthworms good for soil. All right, so I've got a lot of questions here. So I'm going to do some research. So I'm going to find a book, and I have, let's see, I have a book here. This book I came across, it's one of the Reading A to Z books. And we have a couple Reading A to Z books on Blackboard, so you might be able to find one on Blackboard that's your topic. This one's called Wiggly Worms. And so the first thing that I do if I'm trying to do some research, I know what my questions are. In fact, let me see if it's going to work. I can put this on the side and have my questions on the other side. Yeah, that'll work. So now I can see my questions and the book at the same time. Okay, so this book is called Wiggly Worms. And this book has a table of contents. Now, a table of contents is really great when you're trying to do research because you can look for the specific things you're looking for and see if it's in the table of contents, and I'll tell you right where to look in the book. So I had a question here. Let's see. So titles, Small Animal, Big Changes. Earthworm Bodies. Earthworm Bodies might be a good place to start because I have about, do they have eyes and how do they breathe? So maybe I'll learn, maybe even how do they move? Maybe in the section about bodies, it might tell me how they move. So that might be a good chapter to check. And then I have slimy worms, earthworm behavior, earthworms are good for soil? Oh, that looks like just like one of my questions, right? Question number 5, how are earthworms good for soil? It looks like that's going to teach me right what I need to know about earthworms and soil. Wanted earthworms and a glossary. Oh, I might check the glossary too, because maybe some of the words I need are going to be in the glossary. Got cocoon, mate, mussel, soil. Oh, soil. So that's on page 4. The top layer of ground in which plants grow, also known as dirt. Okay. Tube and waste. Okay, well, let me go to the section about earthworm bodies, because I think earthworm bodies might teach me about some of the questions I have about their eyes and how they breathe. So let me go, here it is, earthworm bodies. An earthworm body is shaped like one tube inside another. On the outside, it is a tube of muscle. On the inside is a tube that breaks down food. We got a good diagram there, okay. Oh, let's look, do you see eyes? I don't see eyes in the diagram. That makes me think maybe they don't have eyes, but I'll see if we find more information about that soon. How many rings can you see on this earthworm's body? Oh, I see a lot. Okay, the body of an earthworm is made up of many parts. Each part is shaped like a ring and can bend and stretch. Earthworms move. Oh, I'm seeing a clue here. I think this might help me answer question number 1. Earthworms move by stretching out their bodies and pulling themselves forward. Okay, so that tells me something I need to know. They stretch out their body and then they pull themselves forward. Oh, and here's a picture of them doing that. So they're pulling in the tail to move forward. So they stretched and they got to pull the tail forward. All right, so I'm going to just write down a couple words here. So I don't want to write the whole thing. I don't want to copy the author's word. I know Mr. Vitale taught you the word plagiarism last week. If I write it exactly how the author writes it, that's kind of like cheating. So I'll just write a couple words. Let me see. I'll just say stretch and pull. Let's read on and see if it teaches us more about how they move. Short, tough hairs on their bellies help them hold onto the ground. Oh, here's a picture. Short, tough hairs. Oh, so they have these hairs to hold on. I'll write that down. So hairs help them hold on. Okay. I'm already starting to learn a little bit more about this first question, how they move. Now we're on to the next chapter, the next section, slimy worms. Let me go back up to the top. And we had the section, earthworms are good for the soil. So let's check there and see if we can find, here it is. Earthworms are good for the soil. Farmers love earthworms. When earthworms dig tunnels, they make space in the soil. The space helps plants get what they need to grow. Okay, so it sounds like plants need a little bit of space in the soil. It's not good for the soil to be too packed together. So that's one thing that they're good for. So they make space for the plants. Let's see. Some people raise earthworms on worm farms. The earthworms eat food scraps, turning them into rich soil. Oh, that sounds like what I do. Earthworms' waste helps plants grow big and strong. Now I see that word waste is bold. So let me look at the glossary. Waste, solid matter passed out of the body of an animal. Oh, kind of like poop. Okay. So it sounds like their poop is good for the plants. Interesting. So they eat food scraps, turning them into rich soil, and earthworms' waste help plants grow big and strong. So let me turn that into my own words. I'll say their waste is good for the soil and plants. Okay, so I'm already starting to find some answers to my questions. And as I was scrolling through, I actually saw this box here, and this looks like it's going to answer one of my questions. Question number 4, how do earthworms breathe? Earthworms don't breathe through their mouths. They breathe through their skin. Oh, interesting. Let me write that down. Breathe through skin. Okay. That's why you'll often see earthworms on sidewalks when it rains. They can drown if they stay underground. Earthworms can't survive if their skin dries out either. They can only breathe when their skin is wet. Oh, so that's interesting. So they can't be too wet or they'll drown, and they can't be too dry or they can't breathe. So they just have to be a little wet to breathe. Wow, I'm already learning a lot from this book. Now, I didn't see any information in this book about if they have eyes, and I don't think I saw a little bit about what they're eating. It said they eat the food scraps, and let's see. Maybe earthworm behavior will tell us about what they might eat. Earthworm behavior. Earthworms build long tunnels underground. The tunnels protect worms from heat and sunlight. They also help earthworms hide from hungry animals. Oh yeah, I know, birds like to eat them. There's a robin trying to eat it. A bird has to work to pull a strong worm out of its hole. That one looks kind of like it's eating. Earthworms are sometimes called night crawlers because they come out at night to feed. They use their mouths to pull dead leaves and plants into their tunnels. Ooh, so that gives me a hint about what they eat. Dead leaves and plants. So let me write that. Dead leaves and plants. And we saw down here that they like to eat food scraps. So let me write that too. Food scraps. All right, well, I'm already learning so much from this one book, but I'm noticing that I still haven't really found out if they have eyes, and I'd still like to see a little bit more detail on some of these. So what good researchers do? Good researchers look in more than one place to find answers. So tomorrow, we're going to take a look in some more books and some more resources to help us find more answers to my earthworm questions. All right, well, I will see you then. I hope that today you think about what you want to research, something that you're curious about, something that you know a little bit about maybe, but don't know a lot and still have questions. I want you to write down some questions that you have. It could be on any piece of paper, maybe one of the notebooks that we sent home with you. And then when you have your questions, try to find your first nonfiction book. And if that book has a table of contents, that's a great place to check first. And if it doesn't have a table of contents, just read through the book and see if you can find some answers and jot down a couple ideas about your answers. And it doesn't have to be full sentences. Like you saw, I just wrote down a couple of words. That's all you need to write in your notes. All right, so I hope you guys try that out, and we'll do a little bit more research in another book tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye.